Hey everybody. So what I want to show you how to do today is how to create a Google Sheets, a Google spreadsheet, and then how to use a spreadsheet too. So here I am in my Drive, and I'm going to click on New Google Sheet. And this will open up a new untitled spreadsheet for me. I'm going to come up here and change the title to something relevant to what we're doing. I'm going to call it Parachute Data. And you'll see a lot of the same options you see in Google Docs. You have, undo and redo in the print, and you can change the zoom. And these buttons are new. We'll get to those in a minute. But you can change the font and the font size and bold and italics and text colors and fill colors to fill in the cells. And these will change my alignment to left, right, and center. And I can even change the vertical alignment to the top, middle, and bottom of the box. And so most of these buttons are familiar. There's some new ones, and we'll introduce those as we go. Down at the bottom, you can see that you have sheet 1. You can also add sheets to make multiple sheets. So if I wanted to make 2 different sheets in the same file, I can. And you'll also notice that the screen is divided into a whole bunch of little boxes. Those boxes are called cells, and they get a letter and a number for each one. So for instance, in the blue cell right here, the one that's highlighted, I am in cell A1. And if I came down here, the cell is C7. So you can put information in these cells, and you can have it do a lot of math for you very quickly, which is why we're going to use it to put in the data from our lab. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to copy our data table that we made in class on Friday and put it into this spreadsheet. So I'm going to start in cell B1 with trial 1, and then trial 2, and trial 3. Oops. And so along the left side, you had put in your independent variables, whatever they happen to be. Now I'm going to put IV1, IV2, and IV3, but you should have better descriptors in there, maybe small shoot, medium shoot, large shoot, whatever. And then you collected data on the timing. I'm going to make up some numbers and just put some things in here. And I know your data is going to look a bit different than this, but put in whatever data you happen to get. 0.9, and then we'll make this one lower. So we'll go 0.8 and 0.8. Sure. So I'd like you to pause the video and make sure that you input your data table as you recorded it in class the other day. Now that that's done and you have a table that looks just like mine, I'm going to grab cell A1, and holding my finger down on this, I'm going to highlight all of these boxes. I'm going to click on the borders button up here at the top, and I'm going to add borders to all the squares. And so it'll automatically fill in all of these squares with boxes, and that'll help me see what it is we're working on here. Now, we had done this 3 times for each one, and we were going to get an average for each box. And I told you not to do it the other day because we were going to do it in a really easy way here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up here to E1, and I'm going to write average time. Now, the nice part about a spreadsheet is that it can calculate stuff for you, especially when you have a lot of values. And so to find the average, or whenever we want to do math, instead of typing numbers into the cell, we start with an equal sign. And the equal sign is a symbol to the spreadsheet that says we want this box to equal something. We want it to be a math problem. And so when we put an equal sign in, it tells the computer to solve something for us. And so what we're going to do is just write average And then we're going to highlight these three boxes, B2, C2, and D2. And it didn't work. What did I forget? I know what I forgot. Equal average, open parentheses. And then I can highlight these three boxes. And notice that it puts B2 colon D2 into my formula. And that means all the boxes between B2 and D2. So it's going to take those three and find an average of them. I have to close the parentheses and then press enter, and it automatically finds for me the average of those three values. Now, it's actually jumping ahead because it's smart enough that it says, would you like to put in the average for the boxes below? And I click the check mark, and it automatically fills that formula in. Now, I can double check my work here. I want to make sure that these are in the right places. So if you click on the box, you'll notice that there is this function box up here. This is what's actually happening inside that cell. This is the formula that I typed in, equals average of B2 to D2. But what it's showing me in the cell is 1.2. If I come over here and click on this box, I can go look at the function bar, and it says average of B3 to D3. That would be this box here to this box here, and it's calculating the average of those three. And I come down here, and it's B4, D4. So the computer's actually smart enough to figure out what I want and put it in for me. But there's a couple other things I'd like to clean up here. For starters, I'm going to highlight these four boxes and put some borders around those to make them match. And then I need to work on my decimals. Notice that here in B3, it just says 1 when I had typed 1.0. And over here, my average comes out to 1. And over here, I have a whole bunch of decimals. So some have no decimals, some have a ton of decimals, and some just have one decimal. I'd like to keep my numbers all with the same number of decimals. So I highlight the whole box, and then I use these two buttons. This one will decrease the number of decimals, and it rounds everything off to just 1. But if I increase the decimals, I can go as many decimals as I like, and it lines them all up so that they all have the same number of decimals. Now, I'd like to go to just 1 decimal for these. And here I have the average times for it to drop at each one of my 3 trials. Make sure that your spreadsheet looks the same, and then come back and we'll work at this again. Okay, so here we are with our average times, and this isn't our speed. I think that's important to remember. We want to find the speed at each point too. So we're going to add another column to our graph, our table here, and we'll outline it with borders. And remember, my speed formula is my distance divided by time. So what we're going to have to do is somewhere on here, we're going to have to add the height that this fell from. Maybe that's a good idea. We'll change this box to height. And then this box will be the average speed. Now, I know most of us dropped from 1.5 or 2 meters, but I'm going to go ahead and say 2 meters. And over here, then, my speed is equal to, and this time I don't need to write anything. I'm just going to make a formula. It is my distance, and then I use the slash below the question mark down by the right shift key. F2 divided by E2, my distance divided by time. And when I press enter, I'm going to skip this autofill this time. It gives me 1.66. I can come up and check my math again. It is F2 divided by E2. That'd be the distance the parachute fell divided by the time it took to fall. And it gives me 1.66. I'm going to decrease the decimals until I get somewhere I'm comfortable. And then instead of that autofill, notice this little blue square in the bottom right-hand corner. When I roll over it, it turns into a cursor. If I click on that and drag, it will do that autofill for me. It will scroll the formula down, changing the numbers in the formula to match the new row. So that this first one was F2 divided by E2. This is now F3 divided by E3. And this is now F4 divided by E4. I'm going to go ahead and cover these with some borders. And now I have the average speed of my 3 versions of my parachute. Now I can make a table. I'm going to insert a chart. And I'm going to shrink it down so this all fit on one screen. And if we double click on our chart, it opens up the chart editor over here. There's a number of options I can choose from. And sometimes it takes a little bit of playing to figure out how you would like to build your chart. So there's a little bit of a trial and error, but this button right here is the most important one. It's to select the data range. What I'd like to graph are these 3 boxes here. The average speed of my 3 parachutes. And there they are, 1.7, 2.0, and 2.4. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here to my x-axis and select a data range. And I'm going to select the 3 of these. And that puts my labels under here. Now for me, it says independent variable. If you do that with your data, it should put the name of whatever variables you changed underneath of each one of those bars. And again, I did that over at the x-axis button over here. There was one of these down here, and I chose that. The other thing you can do is click on the Customize button up at the top, and you can change the titles. I want to add a chart title. This first menu right here will let you change the titles, so you can get axes titles or the chart title. The first thing I'm going to do is change the chart title, and I'm going to call this, well, you should name it after whatever you've done to your parachute. Maybe speed of parachute with whatever changes. So I'm going to call this parachute data, which is not a very good title. It doesn't describe much, but I just want you to see that it will pop up at the top of my table. And then I can change my axes titles, and I can make the horizontal is going to be my independent variable. Again, you might call it size of parachute or something. And then my vertical axis title, and I'll change that to say average speed. And I have to include my units, meters per second. And now I've got a finished table. I can take this table and I can copy it and insert it into a Word doc. If I was to open up a Word doc or a Google Doc and I was explaining my results, I can select Insert, a chart from Sheets, and here's the chart I just made in parachute data. And I just click on the chart and I can import it. And now this chart is attached to my document. and it was made in my spreadsheet, and it's still linked. So I can open the source, come over and change things about my table. For instance, if I suddenly realized that I had my numbers wrong and I had put in the wrong data here, and this was supposed to be 1.3 and 1.4, notice that my chart changed as it changed the average time, which changed the average speed. And I click the update button, it'll update my chart for me. So I hope I didn't flood you with too much information. Essentially, you're coming in here and you are putting in your data table and adding these math problems. The computer's solving them for you, and then you're generating a table or a graph out of the data from your average speed. If you missed something, pause the video, go back, find out what you missed, and follow along as best you can, and create me a graph about the data that you made. Good luck.